Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Bullpen Podcast on this Sunday, October 15th, take two of this podcast. I am your host, Adam Kunos. You can follow me on Twitter at Kunos19. Don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter as well at the Bullpen Pod and on our YouTube page as well. We are sponsored by Fanatics. Head over to Fanatics using our Linktree link in our Twitter bio for everything 2023 MLB postseason gear, including authentic on-field jerseys by Nike, hoodies and t-shirts by Nike, jackets by Nike, your official on-field 2023 postseason hat by New Era Cap, and your official division championship postseason gear, and all of your celebration locker room gear by Fanatics. Fanatics, your one-stop online shop for all things Major League Baseball. Once again, everyone, happy Sunday to all. Hope everyone's enjoying this October 15th. I'm actually enjoying this right now down here. It's absolutely gorgeous down here in Florida. As you can tell if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, I'm actually sitting outside this afternoon. We got our screen tents outside, our rig. It is absolutely fantastic weather out here today. It's about mid-70s right now, I would say, down here in Florida. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'm doing this live outside of our rig. I got football on mute right now. All the 1 o'clock games have been completed, so we're now in the afternoon slate of our Sunday NFL slate. But we do have some baseball to talk about as the League Championship Series for the American League kicks off tonight at 8 p.m. on Fox. We'll get into that later on today, later on the show, and also the National League Championship Series, which kicks off tomorrow as well. So we're going to get into that later in the show. But we have a lot to recap as we have two series that have already been completed. The Wild Card Series and the Division Series have already wrapped up. And we're already in the League Championship Series of the postseason, if you can believe that. The Wild Card Series were 4 sweeps, which we'll get into. We had 2 sweeps in the Division Series and 2 series that went 4 games. And a lot of just craziness going around in the Wild Card Series. So let's dive into that right now, as we're going to start with just kind of like my thoughts on how the postseason has gone so far. So last few years, the postseason has gone kind of how you predicted. The best teams have advanced. The wildcard teams, they make it far, and then they get knocked out, maybe Division Series, League Championship Series. As of right now, the last 3 of 4 teams standing are all wildcard teams. We have one division champ that is left standing in the League Championship Series in the Houston Astros. The Philadelphia Phillies, Arizona Diamondbacks, Texas Rangers are all wild card teams. The Rangers and Phillies both won 90 games this year, securing top 2 spots in the wild card. The Arizona Diamondbacks won 84 games. They had the lowest record of any playoff team this season. They're undefeated in the postseason right now. They swept their series against Milwaukee. They swept their series against the Dodgers in the Division Series. So they're 5-0 going into the League Championship Series. Don't forget, they lost 4 straight and kind of backed themselves into the postseason thanks to a Cincinnati loss. They backed it on a 4-game losing streak to get into the postseason. But if you know baseball, you know how the postseason works. Everything resets game 1 of the postseason. Regardless if you've had the best record, the worst record, everything resets to 0-0. You start fresh in the postseason. So we're going to dive into that right now. We're going to start with our Wild Card Series recap, and just what a Wild Card Series this was. We had 4 series that featured top 2 teams with the top 5 records in all of baseball. You had some playoff experienced teams, some teams with non-playoff experience going into the series, and the first series we're going to talk about, the Toronto Blue Jays at the Minnesota Twins, and the Twins did end up winning the series 2-0. Storylines that were going into the series, the Minnesota Twins were looking to snap the longest postseason win and series win drought in baseball. Prior to this series starting, the last time the Twins won a single post-game was back in 2004 against the Yankees in the American League Division Series. It's been over, I think we're coming up to almost 20 years since the Twins had won a postseason game. So that was one storyline that we were looking at, is would the Twins be able to snap that postseason drought and actually win a postseason game? I said that in our wildcard preview show that the Twins, if they wanted to have a successful postseason, all they needed to do was win a postseason game. That's all they needed to do, just win one postseason game. Storyline for the Blue Jays, however, can they get past this wild card hump? Because the last two times they've been in the wild card, swept by the Rays in 2020, humiliated by the Mariners in 2022. So could they get over this wild card hump? And in all honesty, this series was all Minnesota from start to finish. This is an all Minnesota series. So game one, Roy Lewis for the Twins with a 2-run home run gave the Twins all the offense they needed. As the Twins win that game 3-0. Lopez goes 5 2/3 innings with 3 Ks on 5 hits. The Blue Jays offense, however, falls flat in game one. 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. Just could not find any rhythm to this offense. I mean, they would get a hit or two here or there, but nothing consecutive that would be able to score runs or just get some momentum going. So the Twins end up winning game one. Going into game two, Carlos Correa with an RBI single. Willie Castro double play gives Twins a 2-0 lead, and that's all the offense that Minnesota would need. Blue Jays, they go 1 for 5 with runners scoring position. So again, Blue Jays fail to capitalize on key moments in the game to at least chip away at the lead or at least try to win this game. The Blue Jays could not get any offense support in this series. So Twins win the series 2-0. Their first playoff win since 2004 and their first playoff series win since 2002. So they ended not one but 2 droughts in this series, getting to the ALDS for the first time in a few years, but actually getting their first playoff series win in over 20 years. So you have to go back to when I believe they faced the Athletics in 2022, when they reached the ALCS that year, that they actually won a postseason series. Blue Jays, however, offense 1 run on 15 hits combined in both games. Remember, this is a team that had a plus 75 run differential during the regular season, so they had a good offense going into the postseason. Again, falls flat going in. So Twins advanced in the wild card series. Our second wild card series, we're going to talk about the Texas Rangers at the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, there are a couple of storylines that I may get into, but the one storyline I think that everyone was kind of chirping on, the attendance for both games at the Trop. Now, we're all excited down here in Florida and Tampa for the new stadium coming for the Rays in 2028. That is fantastic. They're getting a designated baseball stadium. It's going to be a fantastic stadium. It's going to be its own baseball district down there over in the St. Pete area in the historic gas plant district. But the attendance was something that everyone was talking about. The game one attendance was less than 20,000. 19,704 was the official attendance for game one. In game two, it was 20,198. So you averaged about 19,000, just under 20,000 fans for both games. The Trop has a seating capacity of 42,000. Now, you can blame a couple things. You can say, well, the Rays don't usually draw a lot of fans into their game, or Major League Baseball had poor scheduling mishap on the division series. I lean more towards Major League Baseball's poor scheduling for the playoffs. You scheduled 2 playoff games at 3 o'clock in the afternoon during a weekday down here in the state of Florida. And if you're watching my wife off screen going, oh, what? Absolutely not. Yeah. First of all, schools are in session. People are working. Traffic is just awful regardless of where you are in the state of Florida. You had the perfect opportunity to schedule that game at 5 o'clock. 6 o'clock even at the latest, give people some time to actually get down here. You could have swapped one of the other wildcard series. You could have swapped the Minnesota-Toronto series, flipped that above the Tampa Rangers series, moved the Tampa back to the evening game, gave Minnesota the early afternoon game. There's a lot of things that Major League Baseball could have done, so I lean more towards Major League Baseball and the way they scheduled this as well. So we'll go on that. But let's get into the games. Game one, actually some storylines going in. The Rangers were playing with a little chip on their shoulder. They lost the chance to win the division to the Astros. Um, so that was something that they were going on. The Rays, could they do something with the second best record in the American League? They finished with just under 100 wins, 99 wins this season. Could they do something to actually get out of a early playoff slump that they've been in since 2021? However, game one, the Rays, they dealt with a lot of issues. They had pitching issues going in. They've been switching off pitchers left and right throughout the entire season. But the biggest thing was the Rays commit 4 errors in the game. Rangers do score 4 times. Rays leave runners on base. Again, key stat that I look to for every game is 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. Again, that's not going to cut. So the Rangers take game 1. Game 2, a 4-run fourth inning by the Rangers was pretty much the nail in the coffin as the Rangers sweep the Rays, unfortunately. So the Rangers, who got hot at the last time, take out the second best record in Major League Baseball. Rays did, however, have a couple positive things. They ended a 34-inning postseason scoreless streak, which dated all the way back to 2021 ALDS. However, the Rays are now tied with the Blue Jays for the longest postseason losing streak at 7 games. So when the Rays get back to the postseason, and it's not going to be if they get back, they will be back in future years, 2024, 2025. They will end that postseason losing streak. So I do experience them getting at least one more postseason win with Kevin Cashman at the helm. So American League Wildcard Series recap. Twins advance, Rangers advance, both on sweeps. Moving on to the National League, the Arizona Diamondbacks at the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Brewers did have the third best record in the National League. They won the Central Division this year. Again, Diamondbacks came into this season with low expectations. They were not picked to make the playoffs this year. A lot of experts didn't even have them having above 500 record. They shocked everyone by not only getting off to a hot start, holding a lead in the National League West for a good chunk of the first half, all the way to the All-Star break. Kind of faltered at the start of the second half, but then catch fire at the right time and absolutely kind of backed away into the playoffs. They kind of just left the door open and kind of backed away and said, well, we'll take this final spot. End up with the 6th seed. And then they head up to Milwaukee to face the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers, though, were going to be without their top pitcher, Brandon Woodruff, who did go on the injured reserve list prior to the start of the postseason. So the Brewers were without their number 1 starting pitcher. So game 1, Diamondbacks trail. Brewers got off to a great start in game 1, had a nice lead on the Diamondbacks 3-0 until the third inning when Arizona posted a 3-run inning in the third inning. Back-to-back home runs by Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte does make it a 3-3 tie. Diamondbacks add 3 more off a Monero home run and a Christian Walker double in the top of the ninth, which kind of sealed the game for Arizona. So Arizona jumps out to a 6-3 victory. Story of the game for the Arizona Diamondbacks was the bullpen. The bullpen came out and pretty much dominated. Combined for 6 2/3 innings, 7 Ks, only walked 1 batter. So the bullpen came in and absolutely nailed it down for Arizona. Next night, game 2, same story as game 1. Milwaukee jumps out to an early lead. They get to a 2-run lead, Willie Adames RBI single. But then Arizona goes on an absolute scoring offensive. 5 unanswered runs in the 5th. An Alek Tomas home run, Carroll double opens up scoring for Arizona. So that gives Arizona the 5-2 victory. They outscored Milwaukee 11-5 in the series. So the Diamondbacks shock Milwaukee and sweep that series 2-0 for their first postseason victory since 2017 when they beat the Rockies in the wild card game of the 2017 playoffs. Our last wild card series that we're going to talk about, the Miami Marlins versus the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Phillies are looking to return, kind of repeat as NL champs, return to the World Series for the second consecutive year. They did do that twice back in 2008, 2009, winning the World Series in 2008, losing to the Yankees in 2009. The Marlins, now this is a kind of tricky stat. They are undefeated in the postseason when it comes to coming off a full 162-game slate. 2020, it was only 60 games. The Marlins did make the playoffs that year as a wild card team. They beat the Cubs in the wild card series out at Wrigley, but then lost to the Braves in the NLDS. So they do have some postseason losses on their hand, but prior to that, the Marlins were undefeated. 97, they won the NLDS, NLCS World Series. 2003, won the NLDS, won the NLCS, won the World Series. So they were 6-0 in playoff series going into 2020, but they were undefeated in postseason play coming off a full 162-game slate. Now, again, I had to double check my stats on that one because there is a little asterisk next to that, as the 2020 season did kind of hinder that. But the Marlins did enter the postseason without ace Sandy Alcantara, who did go on IL just as the season was ending. So the Marlins were coming at a disadvantage. So let's jump into Game 1. Trey Turner for the Phillies. And can we just say Trey Turner has been absolutely fire for the Phillies? You had to go back a few weeks that Trey Turner was given a standing ovation by the Philadelphia crowd, even though he was probably at the time of that standing ovation the worst player on the Phillies. He wasn't hitting, his defense was slacking, so the Phillies did a typical Philly thing. They gave him a standing ovation, and he has just been the hottest Phillies hitter since that. Opens up the scoring with an RBI double. The Marlins do strike out 10 times the team during Game 1. The Phillies bullpen does lock it down for a 4-1 victory. Jumping over to Game 2, Kyle Schwarber with a double, home runs by Real Muto and Stout, gives Phillies a 7-0 lead by the 7th inning, and that pretty much knocked it down for the Phillies. So they sweep the Marlins 2-0 to advance to a rematch of the division series with the Atlanta Braves. So your NL wildcard recap, both the Marlins and Brewers are swept by the Diamondbacks and Phillies. So again, 4 sweeps in the wildcard series. I think since the wildcard series began, this is the first time I've seen 4 consecutive sweeps in series. I'll double check that stat. But yeah, 4 2-0 sweeps, just pretty impressive going into that. Now we're going to jump into our division series recap. So now the division series has own storylines. We had a rematch of the Phillies Braves from last year, where the Phillies pretty much shocked Atlanta as the 6th seed in the National League. You had teams with the best records in baseball kind of looking to cement their way into the league championship series. But we're going to start with the Astros and Twins. So the Minnesota Twins, who ended their longest postseason drought, went to Houston to face off the Houston Astros. Quick recap of the series. Game 1, Houston wins 6-4. Twins do bounce back in Game 2, taking that game 6-2. Series shifts to Minnesota for Game 3, where the Astros win 9-1, and then finish off the series with a 3-2 victory. So the Astros do win the series 3-1. They advance to their 7th straight American League Championship Series. Just think about that. 7 straight League Championships appearances. That is unheard of in today's game. You talk about repeating as league champions or World Series champions, it's a different story. Getting to the League Championship Series 7 straight years, with the amount of turnover that the Astros have had, with the amount of controversy that the Astros have had, that's just freaking impressive. And I tip my hat to the Houston front office, the Houston coaching staff, the ownership, the general manager, for putting a winning product of baseball out in Houston. Now, again, the trash can sign stealing scandal from 2017, AJ Hinch getting fired, all those storylines, Dusty Baker coming in, that just kind of, I guess, gives the Astros a little more fire in the kindle to just kind of prove everybody wrong. But when you look at what Houston did in the division series, Jose Abreu went 5 for 16, 3 home runs with 8 RBIs. Now, all those home runs came in Minnesota. Abreu has experience playing the Twins when he was with the White Sox, so he knows Target Field very well, and he absolutely crushed Twins pitching out in Minnesota. Yoran Alvarez was absolutely lights out for the Astros again. Offense, 7 for 16, 4 home runs, 6 RBIs. And this series did feature a lot of balls that left the yard. The Astros hit 10 home runs to the Twins, 5 home runs, so 15 home runs combined between both teams in this series. Twins pitching combined this series an ERA of 4.89, 36 hits, 20 runs, compared to the Astros pitching, 3.25 ERA, 25 hits on 13 runs. So they were pretty evened out when it came to offense and pitching. So the Astros do edge out the Twins, getting into their 7th consecutive league championship series. And they were going to match up against either the Texas Rangers or the Baltimore Orioles. I'm pretty sure I botched that name, but oh well. The Texas Rangers went into Camden Yards and started pretty much just crushing O's pitching right off the bat. Rangers win game 1, 3-2. They crush the O's in game 2 in an offensive onslaught by both teams, 11-8, and then just complete the sweep down in Texas, 7-1. So the Rangers win the series 3-0. The Rangers swept the top 2 teams in baseball during this postseason. The O's had the best record in the American League at 101-61. The Rays at 99-63. The Rangers just knocked the top 2 teams out of the playoffs in consecutive series. What else can you say? That Texas is getting hot at the right time. They're catching fire at the right time. They have the momentum they need to do a deep postseason run. I think going into this league championship series, they're going to give Houston a run for their money. But the Rangers sweep the Orioles, advance to their first ALCS in 2011 when they won back-to-back pennants in 2010, 2011. And the O's were swept for the first time this year. So the O's during the regular season were never swept. I'm going to double-check that again as well. But O's pitching, ERA of 7.20, gave up 21 runs in just 3 games. Rangers hitting, they slashed 283, 387, 491, and they had OPS of 878. So Rangers hitting was just off the charts during this series. And that sets up for a Texas showdown in the ALCS with the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros facing off tonight in the American League Championship Series. And I will give that series a recap here momentarily. But first, we're just going to recap what happened over in the National League. And we're going to start with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the Arizona Diamondbacks faced off against the Los Angeles Dodgers. This was a recap of the 2017 NLDS in which the Diamondbacks came off an impressive victory over the Rockies. And the Dodgers, who had the second best record in the National League, were looking to kind of put their playoff woes behind them. This series was just utter chaos from the beginning. And if you're Arizona, you know that they're using the hashtag embrace the chaos. They embrace the chaos. They did. Game 1, they win 11-2. Game 2, they win 4-2. Game 3 back in Phoenix, 4-2 victory. And they end up sweeping the Dodgers in a 3-0 series win, which just shocked all of baseball. The biggest story, however, in Game 1, if you watched Game 1, Clayton Kershaw did not get out of the first inning of that start. He only lasted for a third of an inning. I double-checked the stat, and this stat, I looked at it again. His ERA, 162, based off the 6 runs he gave up in the first inning. I double-checked that stat. I got that off the MLB website. 162, a third inning pitch, 6 runs off 6 hits, 1 home run. His whip was a whopping 21. So the Diamondbacks, they came in just trying to prove all the Dodgers wrong. Everyone pretty much picked LA to win this series. So Diamondbacks said, you know what? We're going to be the underdogs again. We're going with our hashtag embrace the chaos, and they just did that as well. Game 2 was a close game. Dodgers did have some chances to take Game 2, but Arizona did hold off for the 4-2 victory. Game 3, however, back in Phoenix, it was a 0-0 game going into, I believe this was the third or fourth inning, until Lance Lynn, who was acquired by the Dodgers from the White Sox, gave up 4 home runs in Game 3 in just 1 inning. He gave home runs off of Perdomo, Marte, Walker, and Monora, who had a home run called back. He hit what potentially was a home run down the right field line, but unfortunately it just took ever so slightly over the foul pole and was called back off a umpire review. I do apologize. We have a cat walking around the set right now who tried to jump up on our ironing board just off to my left. Again, a little bit of chaos going, so we're embracing the chaos down here in Florida. The cat's okay. If everyone's wondering, she's fine. She's laying on the couch. The home run got called back, but then off the next pitch, he hit a no-doubt home run off the left center. So that gave Arizona the 4-0 victory, and that was all they need. The Diamondbacks offense was the key to this series victory. Diamondbacks had 29 hits, 9 home runs, 19 runs, a 284 average, /359, 588, and 947. Storyline for the Dodgers. Same old story. Great regular season, over 100 wins, early postseason exit. Again, what more can you say about Los Angeles? It's been the same old story over and over again. Granted, they won the World Series back in 2020 in that 60-game sprint, but when it comes to postseason success off a 162-game slate, they can play a fantastic regular season. They have one of the best regular season track records that I've seen of any team in the last 10 to 15 years. When it comes to the postseason, though, they just cannot seem to find what is clicking for them. So Dave Roberts is going into this offseason. Again, the Dodgers did have a lot of turnover from the 2022 offseason into 2023. So again, there's going to be a lot of questions going into next year for the Dodgers on what they're going to do, who's going to stay, and potential changes coming down the pipeline for them. Our last division series that we're going to cover, the Philadelphia Phillies against the best team in baseball, the Atlanta Braves. Now, this was a rematch of the 2022 NLDS, and Philly did win that series last year, 3-1. So how did the series go for them? Phillies come out, get the 3-0 victory. Braves do get the victory in game 2, 5-4. Now, that game did end with a ball that was hit to right center that was caught on the warning track. I can't remember the player that made the catch, but he did made the catch at the warning track, and he was able to throw out Bryce Harper, who, to my credit, just made a base running error. I mean, he thought when that ball was hit that was going to be off the wall or hit the warning track, and he was going to be able to score from first. Got thrown out at first to end the game. You cannot fault Harper on that at all. Regardless if you hate him or not, it was just a fantastic catch, and Harper had to do everything he can just to get back to first base and just barely missed getting back to first base. When the series shifted to Philadelphia, Phillies come out in Game 3, respond with a 10-2 victory, and then they close out the series with a 3-1 victory. So in back-to-back seasons, the Phillies have knocked out the Braves in 4 games of the NLDS. When you look at the hitting for Philadelphia, Castellanos, Harper, Trey Turner, those were your 3 biggest contributors for the Phillies offense. Kyle Schwarber, who has been a huge contributor for the Phillies during the regular season, was kind of silenced during the NLDS. I potentially can't see him having a good rebound series in the NLCS versus Arizona, but we'll have to see when that series kicks off. Castellanos hit .467, 7 hits, 4 home runs, 4 RBIs. Harper went with a .462 average, 5 hits, 3 home runs, 5 RBIs. Trey Turner's .471, 8 hits, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs. So these 3 guys on the Phillies offense pretty much just knocked it out of the park for Philadelphia. Gave them pretty much all the offensive support.
Just end in the middle of a sentence?
All the offensive support, and just gave Philadelphia what they needed to get this series victory. Now, Braves, who had a fantastic regular season, 104 wins, they had a plus 231 run differential, had an offense which just clicking, scored over 900 runs, set records in home runs, hits, runs scored. You name it, I'm pretty sure they set a record for it. During the regular season, they hit 276. That was probably one of the best averages as a team during the regular season. Only hit 186 during the postseason. So, again, fell flat in the postseason. Again, I say this all the time. Regular season stats do not count towards the postseason. You can have the greatest regular season of all time. You can set records for wins, home runs, runs scored. You can have a plus 250 run differential or 300. You can just outscore your opponents throughout the regular season by 10, 15 runs. Once you get to the postseason, it's a completely new ball game. It's a completely new system that you're playing in. Anything can happen, and we're seeing that right now with what we've just covered, with the wild card series, with the division series. I'm going to jump into this as well. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, the stat I got up right here: the top 5 records in baseball during the regular season. The Braves 104-58, Baltimore 101-61, the Rays 162, Dodgers 99-63, Brewers 92-70. Those teams aren't even in the league championship series. The top 5 teams in baseball couldn't get past the division series. I mean, the AL East, for all it's been this year, 0-5. Sorry, 0-7 actually. They're 0-7 during this postseason. AL East was the best division in baseball this year. 0-7 in the postseason. 0-4 in the wild card series, 0-3 in the division series. That tells you that the postseason, anything is possible. But with that being said, let's dive into our league championship preview. So the American League Championship Series kicks off tonight, 8 o'clock start time, I believe, on Fox. I'll double check that. We're going to tweet out a pregame. We're going to tweet out a pregame tweet when that series gets ready to start. Houston is 4-2 in the ALCS. Texas is 2-0 in the ALCS. Your starting pitchers for tonight are Montgomery for the Rangers versus Verlander for the Astros. 2 things I look at for this series: the Rangers are playing with a chip on their shoulder when it comes to Houston. They had a chance in Seattle to win the division. They had to win 2 games, split the series with Seattle in a 4-game series. Couldn't do that. They let Houston, who swept Arizona, kind of take the division right up beneath them. Houston does hold the advantage when it comes to regular season play this year. Went 9-4 versus Texas this year, so Houston does have the edge in that. I like, though, what the Rangers have done. Rangers are a very young and aggressive team. I do think that they are going to kind of surprise Houston this year in the ALCS. So my pick for the series, the Rangers in 6. I did ask my wife who she liked in the series. She did not make it clear that she hates the Astros. She is not a fan of them. She will take a trash can and throw it at their logo if I gave her the chance to. But she picks the Rangers in 5. We did ask you, the fans, on Twitter who you liked, and with a whopping 68%, you guys are picking Houston to win this series. So Houston, Texas kicks off tonight down in Houston. Our last series that we're going to talk about, the National League Championship Series, the 6th seed Arizona Diamondbacks versus the 4th seed Philadelphia Phillies, is a wild card league championship series for the 2nd straight year. Last year we had the Padres and Phillies, who were both wild card teams, facing off for the league championship. Arizona is 1-1 in the NLCS. They won back in 2001, lost in 2007 when they got swept by the Rockies. Philly is 6-4 in the NLCS. They are defending National League champions. Phillies did go 4-3 versus Diamondbacks this year, so it was a very close series between these teams throughout the regular season. So I believe this is going to be a great series. Arizona's trying to be the 2nd consecutive 6th seed in the National League to reach the World Series. Philadelphia did last year by beating the Padres to make it to the World Series. Arizona's looking to repeat that success. Phillies are looking to make it back-to-back World Series appearances for the first time since 2008-2009 when they beat the Rays in 08, lost to the Yankees in 09. As for who we're picking, if you know me, cheering for Arizona, create chaos, embrace the chaos, let the chaos continue. I am picking Arizona in 6. My wife is on board with me. She likes Arizona. She's picking Arizona in 6 as well. We did ask you, the fans, on Twitter, who you think are going to win this, are going to represent the National League in the World Series. With a whopping 86% of the vote, you are picking the Phillies to win the pennant and face off. So, if we're looking at World Series picks, I am picking a Rangers Diamondbacks World Series. My wife is also picking a Rangers Diamondbacks World Series. You, the fans, are picking a World Series rematch of the Houston Astros and the Philadelphia Phillies. So Game 1 for the National League Championship Series starts on Monday. Zach Gallen for the Diamondbacks is slated to start Game 1. The Phillies have yet to announce their Game 1 starters, so once they announce that, we'll send out a tweet on Twitter with who they are starting. This is going to be a fantastic league championship series. No one thought that the Diamondbacks would make it this far. The Rangers would be in here. Everyone's picking a Baltimore-Houston league championship series. Everyone's picking an Atlanta-LA league championship series. Again, postseason baseball at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that brings it to the end of this broadcast. Our next broadcast that we'll do will be a World Series preview show. So once the last game of the League Championship Series has been played for both the American League and National League, we'll do a recap of the League Championship Series, and we'll do a World Series preview show. So that has yet to be determined. We'll do that as soon as the League Championship Series have come to a close. Thank you very much for tuning in on this wonderful Sunday afternoon. Hope you guys are enjoying your football. We will see you next time here on the Bullpen Podcast. Have a great evening, everyone.